Miraculously surviving the hunt orchestrated by the satanic Ladomas family, Grace ends up in the hospital. But her ordeal is far from over. Now her head is on the line in an even more dangerous tournament, whose winner will gain dominion over the entire world. Members of powerful families gather for a second round of the hunt, and this time Grace won't be fighting alone. She's handcuffed to her younger sister, with whom she has, to put it mildly, a complicated relationship. Fear and laughter often go hand in hand in cinema, but finding the right balance and organic union between the two is no easy task. Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett usually pull it off. Starting out in the filmmaking collective Radio Silence with anthology projects like VHS and Southbound, they eventually emerged as a directing duo and went on to create a string of standout horror films with a strong comedic edge. Their flagship remains Ready or Not, a slasher in which a refined bride transforms overnight into a ruthless warrior, wiping out a Satan-worshipping cult. That film cost $6 million and grossed $57 million, paving the way for Bettinelli-Olpin and Gillett to direct Scream 5 and 6, as well as continue their exploration of comedic horror with the vampire slasher Abigail. The latter barely broke even, which was one of the reasons the duo returned to their ace in the hole, their lucky charm, Samara weaving in a blood-soaked wedding dress. Unsurprisingly, Ready or Not 2 had no trouble recouping its $14 million budget, though it still falls noticeably short of its predecessor. The first Ready or Not had a lot going for it. The audacity of its premise, sharp horror action, well-timed bursts of humor, a subtle satirical edge, and a phenomenal Samara weaving in the lead, effortlessly shifting between a fragile ingenue and a ferocious fury. The sequel adds complicated family dynamics quite literally. Grace is handcuffed to her sister, and introduces the main contenders for the satanic throne. Opposite-sex twins played by 90s stars Shawn Hatosy and Sarah Michelle Gellar. Interestingly, the idea of giving Grace a sister originated from a completely different project Bettinelli-Olpin and Gillett were developing before being tapped for the sequel. But that doesn't really change the substance of what's happening, and in fact, it quickly fades into the background. This feels like one of those films built around a handful of standout set pieces, with everything else constructed to support them. And there are several such highlights. A golf cart chase that uses the aesthetics of lazy, decadent luxury as a backdrop for upper-class cruelty. A fight between two blinded women set to total eclipse of the heart. And of course, the climactic bloodbath in a pit meant for satanic sacrifices. It's not that these elements fail to come together at all, but as a whole, Ready or Not 2 is less interesting than the sum of its parts. At the end of the day, we've seen most of this before in the original, and the film's constant urge to crack jokes undermines its suspense. It's hard to feel tension when the hunters are a group of obvious oddballs, many of whom have never even held a weapon. This isn't John Wick or Smokin' Aces, where the protagonists were pursued by highly trained killers. As a result, it's difficult to take what's happening seriously. The more grandiose the ringmaster of this circus, played with sharp wit by Elijah Wood, gets about world domination, the more jarring the contrast with the ragtag group of costumed clowns vying for it. Still, if you switch your brain off and approach Ready or Not 2 as a fun, bloody ride, it's easy to enjoy. There's pleasure to be found in the filmmaker's sense of humor, in the film's visual style, and in its casting, where the ever-brilliant Samara Weaving is joined by another Bettinelli-Olpin and Gillett favorite, Kathryn Newton, who previously appeared in Abigail. The creative spark behind this idea may be fading, but it hasn't gone out completely, though it's unlikely to last for a third round. It might be time to call it quits on this game of hide and seek.